Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Numbers chapter 33 in a clear and simple way, step by step. Okay, so we are looking at a genuinely fascinating piece of text today. Now, if you've been following the narrative of the Israelites, you know they have been through a lot. But Numbers chapter 33, it's entirely unique. It actually serves as the ultimate definitive retrospective travelogue of the Israelites' entire 40-year journey. It literally traces their path step by step from their exodus out of Egypt straight to where they are currently standing right now, the plains of Moab, just across the Jordan River from Jericho. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the context, look at leaving Massei in verses 1 through 4, then possessing the land in verses 53 through 56, wrap up with the key ideas, and finally, draw out some practical life lessons. Section 1, Context. Looking back to look forward. We find ourselves at this massive, pivotal transition point. The older generation has passed on, and before this brand new generation can actually enter the promised land, they need a permanent record of exactly where they came from. And that brings us to the very first word at this chapter, Massei. In Hebrew, Massei translates to stages or journeys. Verse 1 opens by stating, "These are the stages of the children of Israel, by which they went forth out of the land of Egypt by their hosts, under the hand of Moses and Aaron." This word is absolutely crucial because it signifies a deliberate, step-by-step progression. You see, the wilderness experience wasn't just some random, chaotic wandering. It was a highly specific sequence of divine stages, guided directly by God. Section 2, Departure from Ramesses, covering verses 1 through 4. Now look at what verse 2 explicitly tells us. It says, "And Moses wrote their goings forth, stage by stage, by the commandment of the Lord." He didn't just decide to keep a personal journal for fun. He acted as a scribe under God's direct, explicit command, meticulously recording every single stage of their journey. This detail completely elevates the travelogue. It transforms it into a divinely mandated testament of their survival and God's absolute providence. Then, the text gives us this incredibly precise timeline in verse 3 to really anchor the history. It notes exactly when they set out from their starting point, Ramesses. They left on the 15th day of the first month. And the text specifies this was on the morrow, the exact morning after the Passover event. So they observed the Passover during the night, and boom, by the very next morning, they were fully mobilized and rapidly on the move. And honestly, this creates such a brilliant, stark contrast right here in verses 3 and 4. On one side, you have the Israelites. The text says they marched out boldly in full view of all the Egyptians. It's a picture of absolute, literal triumph and liberation. But on the other side, what are the Egyptians doing? Verse 4 tells us they were busy burying all their firstborn, whom the Lord had struck down among them. It's a really powerful juxtaposition, right? Israel's bold salvation set right against the devastating defeat of their oppressors. Now, catch this simple, literal explanation given at the very end of verse 4 for why this total devastation happened. The text plainly states, "For the Lord had brought judgment on their gods." So this wasn't just a physical liberation. It was a profound theological victory that directly dismantled the power of the Egyptian deities. Following this triumph, verses 5 through 52 ensure no step of the journey is lost to history. Rather than listing all 42 individual stops right here, just know the text meticulously maps their path in key geographical phases, journeying out of Egypt to the Red Sea, surviving that long stretch through the wilderness of Sinai, pressing upward to Kadesh, and finally arriving right up to their current camp in the plains of Moab. Moving on to section 3, Possessing the Promised Land, which covers verses 53 through 56. Right after that exhaustive list of their travel stages, the text just abruptly shifts gears from the past directly into the future. Verse 53 provides these crystal clear two-step instructions from God. He commands Moses to tell the people, "Take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have given you the land to possess." Notice the duality there. Step 1 is to actively take possession, meaning, dispossess the current inhabitants and formally claim the territory. But step 2 is equally critical. They actually have to settle in it. They aren't meant to just be a conquering army. They are commanded to establish homes, cultivate the land, and build a lasting holy society right there. So once they possess it, how do they divide the whole shebang up? Well, verse 54 clarifies a highly organized, fair, and incredibly logical system for land distribution. They are instructed to distribute the land by lot, which ensures divine guidance in exactly where each tribe is placed. Furthermore, it's distributed according to their ancestral clans. The pragmatic rule here is proportionality based on population size. It's simple. Larger groups receive a larger inheritance of land, and smaller groups receive a smaller inheritance. Everything is strictly mapped out. Section 4, a crucial warning and strict conditions. But listen, this divine grant of land, it comes with some really strict conditions. God provides a severe, unavoidable warning in verse 55 about what will happen if they fail to follow through completely with the commandment to drive out the inhabitants. God warns, "But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then shall those that ye let remain of them be as barbs in your eyes and as thorns in your sides." I mean, that is vivid imagery. This literally means any remaining inhabitants will constantly harass them and bring endless trouble to Israel in the very land where they are just trying to dwell peacefully. It's a very clear warning of persistent, painful conflict if they decide to compromise on God's command. And if that wasn't serious enough, verse 56 concludes this chapter with a truly chilling promise. God says, "And it shall come to pass that as I thought to do unto them, so will I do unto you." Think about what that actually means. It means God will hold Israel to the exact same standard of judgment. If Israel disobeys and just adopts the ways of the remaining inhabitants, the destruction and displacement that was meant for the Canaanites will instead fall directly upon the Israelites themselves. Section 5. Key simple ideas. Distilling the narrative. Let's just pause and distill the literal historical narrative and divine commands we just walked through into a few key ideas. This summary breaks the chapter down perfectly. It starts with record keeping, as Moses painstakingly documents the stages under God's explicit command. It reflects on divine deliverance, remembering the bold exit from Egypt and the literal judgment on the Egyptian gods. It looks forward to inheritance, detailing the fair, equitable division of the land by lot. And finally, it closes with consequences, warning of the intense dangers of failing to fully drive out those negative influences. It really is an unbroken narrative, connecting God's deliverance in the past to his strict requirements for the future. Finally, Section 6, Practical Life Lessons, applying this to today. So why does all this ancient history matter to us? While we are reading a historical account of ancient Israel, the underlying principles of God's instructions are absolutely timeless. First, we must reflect on our own Massei, our own stages. It is incredibly valuable to look back at the step-by-step journey that brought you to exactly where you are today, recognizing how you've been guided. Second, we need to step forward boldly into our future, just like the Israelites who marched out of Ramesses in full view of their past oppressors. And finally, perhaps most importantly, we must actively remove the thorns from our lives. If you allow negative habits, toxic influences, or compromises to just linger in your life, they will inevitably become barbs in your eyes, constantly distracting you and bringing you trouble. So ask yourself, what thorns are you leaving in your side on your own journey? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.